Thank you, Kim. As you all have already experienced, it is an earmuffs and mittens day today in New York City. Nonetheless, it is magnificently beautiful. Welcome to our last regular meeting of the year. It's welcome extended to the members.
Can't have one on Christmas, too.
One never knows, John. One never knows. To our last regularly scheduled meeting of the calendar year. Thank you all for being here. John Gardner is on the telephone. He, as a result, is not able to vote at this meeting. Tracy Riley from the Department of Health is on the phone, and she may have some comments later on. Charlie Abel will be the voting member from Health for this meeting, and he is on his way here and should be here any minute. So I think we're covered. This is our fifth meeting in 6 weeks. I think I got that right. That's right. Okay. And I think in having 5 meetings in 6 weeks, this board has demonstrated beyond a shadow of a doubt its ability to meet the needs of clients in an increasingly unpredictable, competitive environment. The 3 special meetings were very special in a number of ways, but I'll only recite one of them. We had all members present and voting, if my recollection is correct, at the first meeting, and at the no, that's not correct. We had all but one member. All members were present. Only one vote. Only one was not voting at the first meeting. We had all members. No, we had 9 members present at the second meeting, and all members present and voting at the third meeting. I should have written that down. I apologize. We learned that we can have special meetings in special circumstances, and one of the things that I want to explore with the board on the telephone at some point is the question whether or not when weather is threatening, we can notice a meeting to be held in a remote location such that members who can't make it to the central location of the meeting might be able to attend as we did for the special meetings. That may be something that you don't want to do, but I'm going to raise the issue with each of you on the phone in the coming days, and we'll see where it goes. I wanted to end this commentary by saying that for me, it has been extremely gratifying to be in this particular governance position, particularly this year, as we have managed to work with staff and our clients to transform a very important state agency, what it needs to be going into the future. This is a very important organization, and you all continue to make it an important organization. Your willingness to be here and participate, I want to thank you all for that. So that I will stop talking about things that probably don't need any further mention, why don't we move directly into the agenda? The minutes of the November 8th meeting are in your board books. You've all had a chance to take a look at them. Are there any comments, any changes recommended? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes? Paul, thank you. Sandra, thank you for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye. 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 As there are none opposed, the minutes are approved unanimously. And now what I'd like to do is to go into what may well be a brief executive session. May I have a motion to go into that session to discuss the financial and credit history of particular corporations? Beryl, thank you. Is there a second? Sandra, thank you very much. Kim, we are in executive session. Thank you, Kim. The record will reflect that we have just come out of executive session during which no decisions were made other than to return to the public session. On the agenda, the next item is the report of the Finance Committee. Mr. Romsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Finance Committee meeting committee met yesterday afternoon. We adopted the meeting minutes from the November meeting of the committee. Then we advanced and discussed 4 resolutions: the Hospital for Special Surgery, Montefiore Medical Center, Mammamies Medical Center, and also a law draw from Cornell University. And after some discussion on each and every one of those resolutions, We unanimously voted to recommend approval of those resolutions at today's board meeting. That concludes my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Thank you. We'll move on to the adoption of financing documents and those resolutions. Mr. President?
Thank you, and good morning. Before I get into that, Mr. President, I just want to highlight one thing. I want to thank the board for your responsiveness and commitment to executing 5 very important meetings within a period of 6 weeks. I certainly commend your civic commitment to New York State and its private clients that are central to the growth and development of our economy. Thanks goes to DASNY's public finance, legal, and finance teams. Everyone had an all-hands-on-deck approach. We executed quickly. We were very engaged, and more importantly, executed with the same level of diligence that we have always brought into the process. Everyone connected with clients and collaborated to help clients get into the market. And again, we focus on efficient processes and effective outcomes. I want to commend Portia, Mike Cusack, and Kim Nadeau for ensuring we move faster and continue doing the 100 other things that continue to be very important to us as a corporation. But more importantly, I think this demonstrates that DASNY continues to be not just a leader in executing these transactions in this state, but a leader across the nation. So I wanted to make those comments and say thank you to everyone.
Thank you, George. Thank you very much. Behind tab 3 is St. John's University Credit Summary Update with Vivian Brohan, Esquire of Brohan Lee LLP, presenting on behalf of co-bond Counsel Brohan Lee and Nixon Peabody. Welcome, Vivian.
Welcome. Good morning. You have before you for your consideration a resolution to approve a series resolution approving the issuance of up to $88 million of the authority's St. John's University revenue bonds. The 2017 bonds will be issued pursuant to the general resolution adopted by the authority in June of 2012. The 2017 bonds will be used to refund all or a portion of a 2 series of bonds previously issued by the authority in 2008 and 2012. It is expected that the 2017 bonds will be issued as fixed-rate tax-exempt bonds, which will mature not later than July 1st, 2037. The series resolution delegates to various officers of the authority the power to determine the specific terms of the 2017 bonds, including the principal interest thereof, the maturity dates, and the applicable interest rates. In addition, the series resolution authorizes various officers of the authority to first execute a loan agreement, prepare and distribute a preliminary official statement, and a final official statement, and execute and deliver a bond purchase agreement and a continuing disclosure agreement. The general resolution permits the issuance from time to time of multiple series of bonds. Each series of bonds is separately secured by the funds and accounts established under the applicable series resolution. In accordance with the authority's financing guidelines for independent institutions, the university's obligations under the loan agreement to be entered into in connection with the 2017 bonds will be a general obligation of the university and will not be secured by a pledge of any of the university's revenues or real property. The loan agreement contains a covenant by the university to retain a management consultant at the discretion of the authority in the event the university's credit rating falls below the criteria established in the financing guidelines. 2017 bonds are proposed to be sold in a negotiated sale to Morgan Stanley pursuant to a bond purchase agreement. The bond purchase agreement contains terms and conditions that are customary in connection with the authority's bonds. There is one item that was brought to my attention on the board letter. The second paragraph on the first page has a typographical error. under the plan of finance. It has that with respect to the 2012 A and B bonds, it was issued in August 2008. Should have been 2012. I just wanted to bring that up for sake of clarity and accuracy.
Thank you. Portia, will you be answering questions along with Vivian in Steve's absence, if there are any?
Sure.
Okay. Are there questions for Portia or Vivian? Well, hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction? Beryl, thank you. Is there a second?
So moved.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Sandra. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Vivian, thank you. Happy holidays.
Happy holiday.
Behind tab 4 is St. Joseph's Hospital of Yonkers Credit Summary Update with pro-bond counsel Connie Cahill, Esquire of Barclay Damon, and Patrick McGlashan, Esquire of the McGlashan Law Firm, and Matt Bergen and Craig Shriveko presented.
We have enough chairs up there?
We're gonna get one more. That's all right.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to begin just as a brief update. The approvals that were asterisked that indicated the anticipated date. We do have the secret filing completed. The TEFRA hearing and the PACB approval are on schedule. And also, I did want to make a note that there was a request for projections from the institution, and those projections have been provided to the members. Mr. Chairman, that's my update. I just want to know if you wanted bond counsel to go into their presentation right now.
How were they provided?
Are they on the table?
Oh, I didn't know. I haven't looked at them.
At the bond counsel letter? I didn't see a bond counsel letter either.
No. In the packages for each of the members, the top documents.
I never got one.
Yeah, that should have been done separately.
No.
The bond counsel letter.
No, I don't think it was sent out. I don't think
We sent
they
them out on
were.
Friday. Did you not get them?
I'm sorry, Connie, did you send them out?
We did.
Okay.
On Friday.
I didn't get one either.
I didn't get one.
I think you sent them regular mail.
No. We did send them regular emails. I apologize.
I didn't see that either.
We were racing to make sure they went out on Friday.
Want to make a couple of copies?
I'm doing it right now. Give us a second.
Okay, I feel badly because Dean and I worked on Friday to get them done, and I.
You obviously didn't know that we hadn't gotten them, so it's
Right,
fine.
I did not.
It happens. Well, rather than waiting for the copies, why don't we start with Matt with whatever questions the members may have. All right, then why don't we hold off for a second and give folk a chance to read the financials that were just handed out.
So
here.
maybe, Matt, just at a high level, you could talk about the projections that have been provided in terms of sort of the bottom line results. Because I believe that these are the projections that were also provided to the Department of Health in connection with VAPAP or VIPQUIP funding.
Right, and I think at a high level, as the projections indicate, the projections show less of a loss over time. However, there are losses projected in each of the 3 years. And then ultimately, the state funding needed does decrease over time, but there is, in fact, significant state funding needed over the 3 years. And again, the anticipated state funding that's needed is expected to decrease over time.
Matt, where do I see less of a loss over time?
The operating profit or loss begins with 17.052 million in 2018. By 2020, the projection shows an anticipated operating loss of 12.7 million.
Oh, less over these 3 years, but not less over the current.
The current loss is $6 million.
That's correct.
So it's twice the current loss.
Or at least 2016, we don't have 2017 numbers, but the loss going from now is increasing and then begins to drop down, but still stays at a level higher than what it is now. Is that accurate to say?
That's correct.
And just picking up on that, the anticipated state subsidy this year, this state fiscal year through March of 2018, is $7.8 million, which is roughly the same as the anticipated subsidy needed in calendar year 2018.
Does it get better?
It does not.
So it's comparable for 2018, and then it starts to decrease in 2019 and 2020 in terms of the amount of state assistance that's needed. Although, as Matt and Larry have indicated, there is still additional state assistance that's needed. And again, those are the projections that the EPA has provided to the Department of Health in connection with their budgeting process for the VIP-QUIP program.
No, I can, with the chair's permission, I can comment a little bit about our monitoring program for VIP-QUIP and VAPAP facilities.
Please, Charlie. Thank you.
So, the VAPAP and VIP-QUIP funding is intended to be transitional funding to be able to facilitate stabilization, financial stabilization, and then implementation of a transformation or turnaround plan, and is designed to facilitate or ease a transition to our DSRIP initiative, Delivery System Reform Incentive Payment initiatives, and all designed to accommodate increased preventative care to keep people out of hospitals who can be cared for in less costly outpatient basis. And the expectation is that the increase in primary care statewide will also keep people out of EDs who might otherwise show up at an ED and be cared for in an outpatient setting, less costly outpatient setting. So that transition for a hospital, especially hospitals that have had marginal financial performance, it is pretty impactful. As you can imagine, a reduction in discharges, even one as relatively small as 5 to 10% can be substantial. The VIP-QUIP and VAPAP funding, and obviously St. Joseph's and Yonkers receives VIP-QUIP funding, is designed to facilitate that transformation to a more outpatient-centric model. This financing, primarily refinancing, is designed to facilitate cash flow, be able to improve that cash flow in the early years, and be able to provide sufficient cash to make investments into the facility that will better position it for an outpatient-centric service model. The advantage to there are a number of advantages to St. Joseph's catchment area. While we have a relatively large number of facilities, hospitals still in Westchester, St. Joseph's has the benefit of being the only hospital in Yonkers. It does cater to primarily a Medicaid, Medicare population, creating additional challenges on with respect to payer mix. But the expectation of the DIP model is to facilitate not only quality improvement, but also a price-based performance model that will better place the facility on a plane with the insurers to reward that facility for keeping people out of the hospital, essentially, by lowering costs on a per capita basis. So a lot of things at play here with this facility, and a number of forces that it has to this facility has to reckon with. That's the strategy.
Matt, for the record, would you tell us about the organization with which the bonds will be privately placed?
Yes, this is a private placement with Rosemore Management LLC. This is, in essence, a purchaser that will purchase the bonds on behalf of their funds, which are high-yield funds. So,
So they're a fund of funds. Is that? Yeah, am I correct about that?
Hedge fund.
It's a hedge fund.
Right.
it's a high-yield fund.
It's a hedge fund.
It's not a fund-to-fund, though.
Okay. All right.
And
Yes.
I don't know if I'm allowed to speak by speakerphone, or even if you can hear me.
We can hear you. Thank you.
You're always
Okay,
allowed to
but
speak.
I know that this buyer specializes in municipal bonds that involve structural or credit complexity. I'm actually reading from their website, and it looks like they do high-risk municipal bonds. So this is, in my mind, a perfect buyer for this, for this private placement. My only question is, are there restrictions on the bonds, such as they will never see the light of day in the public market?
And also another sort of related question is this a fund that has many different types of high-yield municipal bonds, so that the fund itself is diversified into just a lot of different high-yield debt in the municipal space? This is just a tiny fraction of its fund, right?
That's my understanding. They're listed as an alternative investment management firm that's focused on exclusively investing in the U.S. municipal market, and obviously looking for superior risk-adjusted returns.
And do you have a sense of, either one of you see their assets under management somewhere in their website?
I do not have that information.
Just curious. It won't matter. Just curious.
John, you're on their website. Does it list their assets under management?
AUM?
You know what? I'm looking for it right now. I bet they do. Let me see if I can find that. Give me a minute.
It's not all that relevant. Just curious. Just because typically it's just a tiny bit, and there's lots of different municipal debt that they invest in. So no one client would just own this. It would just be a tiny fraction of their holding.
And John, in answer to your question about transfer, you are correct. This is the customary language which we have talked to the board about previously, that limits this purchase to a quib and limits subsequent transfers to quibs is also included in this transaction.
And that's what's in the bond council letter here, right? It goes through it like this.
Right. We do reference
On
it
page
in the bond
4.
council letter. We'll reference it in our presentation.
And then they say, like it says, Connie says, a series 2017 will also require that a statement to such effect be included in every series 217 bond, right?
Correct.
That's-
So it's not only in the
Right.
resolutions.
And what is
but
the statement? Is it like it's a bold statement, or is it like
Correct.
It's
At
a
the
certain
top of-
type at the top of the page, so it's sort of all
But
highlighted and in
can't
red,
miss
and it has lights on it. And so
So what happens if a fool does buy it?
and he's a fool.
He's a fool. There's no real monitor. It's really, it's a self-monitor.
The person is a fool. That's
Well, let's
we're talking about qualified.
This is a
We're
higher
talking about quips.
yielding
Yeah, Chris,
credit.
yeah.
But no, this is a higher yielding credit, which means that there are investors who in fact would say that they want to be positioned in this space in the municipal market, as opposed to getting 2%, 2.5%. It's really a legitimate play in the market.
And I'll point out as well that at closing, the purchasers are required to deliver, to sign a certificate, to deliver a certificate.
I'm back. I dropped out for a minute.
Hi, John.
I was just reminding the board that at closing, one of the documents that is required is a certificate from each of the purchasers confirming their status as a quib, indicating that they've done whatever diligence they deem appropriate, and they do not look to DASNY in that regard whatsoever, and that it's entirely that their diligence.
Isn't the bet that they're making, because I think it is a bet, that they're making is that when this institution does fail, the state will bail out the bondholders?
I mean, if the institution should.
I think that
No,
I would.
it's when you look at the numbers, explain why it's not going to be. The projections are that the loss is doubling over what it is now under this restructuring.
I would put that a little bit differently, John, which is that I believe that the investment decision assumes that the state will continue to support them so that they do not close.
Okay.
But there's no state service contract on this.
That is
on this
correct.
closing.
There is no
For the
direct
record.
obligation on the part of the state to do that, but I think that is their assumption, that this hospital is deemed by the state to be sufficiently important to delivering care in that community that the state will continue to support it.
So this
No
hospital
one's
has-
making that representation.
Pardon me?
No one's making that representation. There's no
Correct,
promise of any of
correct.
that.
That's correct.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that we're not.
Right.
Only history.
The
No,
department,
right.
the department considers this to be an important, if not vital, community provider. We cannot, the department cannot guarantee that the VIP-QIP funding will continue at all. It's all subject to budget approval. But our expectation is that there will be some continued funding in future years. The expectation is that overall in the aggregate, and we've got something on the order of 24 hospitals that still receive some form of this extraordinary funding statewide, but in the aggregate, that funding level will decrease. And as facilities, and we have had some successful facilities that have come off of VAPAT funding. So the expectation is that this is a transitional funding to allow facilities to restructure, get their house in order, and be able to move forward in a financially feasible manner.
Sandra, please.
Sorry, go ahead.
Are there anticipated changes in the management team, or is the same management team who's been there going to be leading the restructuring?
The department has not heard of any change in the management team expected.
So we should assume it is likely to be the same team.
I don't know if Matt's heard anything.
I have not heard of any changes.
And Matt, I wanted to ask you, we have information here about the IDA refinancing and
Yes.
what the structure is, and some very early upfront savings taken, and then beginning in 2021, then an extension of 8 more years with considerable debt service. We don't have that same information about the other 2 refinancings. What can we, you mentioned last time that there were extensions of those, but what do we think is going to hit in 2021 in terms of additional debt service load on those 2 refinancings? Is it a similar structure?
The current capital lease, or the credit summary and the credit summary update, I believe both have as $900,000. They have a current maturity of 2021. That's proposed to be extended till 2028. The way they've run this savings, this was at the request of the Department of Health, they split that into both an interest savings and a principal savings. So by 2022, there would be about $70,000 of additional principal and interest payments as they do get those savings up in front from extending that debt. The analysis that DASNY provides speaks to the IDA refundings, and then on the mortgage refunding, which is listed as the refinancing of a bank mortgage loan, $11.2 million. That has a current maturity of 2031. That's proposed to be extended until 2040. So in 2032, there is approximately $1.1 million of additional debt service payments that would have not occurred if they did not extend that maturity.
So those additional numbers, which I'm not quickly adding in my head, but are considerable, they don't show up in this one sheet you've given us because they don't get picked up until later.
We typically just show bonds to bonds on bank loans because many times they do have short maturities. We do not show a savings analysis in the staff report. And again, this was information that was provided to the Department of Health as well as DASNY.
But in the one-page profit and loss, they're not going to show up because these additional debt service costs are going to begin past this.
That's correct.
2020.
That's correct. Right. Yep.
My concern is that we almost seem to be looking over the edge of a cliff in 2021. And there's a 3-year period when we have to hope that within that time, this restructuring will take place, the outpatient clinic and whatever else is being built will be built up and running, managed well, bringing in more money, and be prepared to deal with the additional costs that this refinancing is bringing about. And I haven't really even asked about the new financing. What kind of debt service burden are we playing with that? I mean, do we know anything about what we might be looking at with the new financing?
Well, it would be level debt service on the $9 million of borrowing.
Well, more accurately, Matt, isn't it? The result is level debt service overall through the maturity.
Right. That's correct, Charlie. Because in essence, the purchaser wanted to see level debt service, so they structure the entire bond transaction taking into account the 4 components. And so the projection is that total debt service will be approximately $1.7 million, and that takes into the 4 components, with the new money having a 30-year maturity, the mortgage having right now it's proposed to be 2040 as opposed to 2047 for the new money. And the IDA and the capital leases, they have a proposed maturity of 2028. So each debt service payment is structured so that they have level debt service. However, with different maturities of the components of the debt, it's in essence wrapped around to provide level debt service throughout the 30-year borrowing.
And that's a good thing, but level doesn't necessarily mean affordable.
Right.
Either. I'm just looking for a bright light somewhere that tells me that in a 3-year period we can so quickly do what hasn't been done in recent years and assume this additional debt. And I can't hear anything that makes this seem realistic to me. I know it's late to be asking this question. Is there a more modest approach to this, selling the nursing home with the state aid, doing something that doesn't require some of these actions that trouble me?
The challenge is really getting to the long term. We're over the. I believe I calculated a cash flow savings of about $1.3 million over the next few years, each year over the next few years. Then you're absolutely correct. That service increases. The challenge for this facility is to is to complete its restructuring such that it will begin to perform better, not only from an operational perspective, but financially as well, to be able to support that increased debt service. Without this restructuring, the department views this as a critical piece to facilitating this restructuring. The sale of the nursing home is another piece. The cash that the facility receives from that nursing home sale is designed to pay vendors and other bills and preserve some cash for routine maintenance on the facility, which, frankly, because of the cash stress on the facility, they have not been able to improve the facility as much as they would like to. It's one of the reasons why the state has provided that capital grant in order to be able to help the facility restructure.
And it's important for them to bond for their matching component as to try to pay for that out of cash from the sale of the nursing home. So in essence, if they're able to have a 30-year amortization for the $9 million of the match and structure it so that the payments, in essence, wrap around the shorter maturities of both the capital leases and the IDA bonds, which go out to 2028, the bank loan, which is proposed to go out to 2040, it provides them with approximately $1.7 million of debt service payments, which is in essence the best structure for them, combined with the sale of the nursing home.
Do they have a financial consultant? Is there somebody overseeing the way that they restructure their current finances such that there's a comfort level, someone you can go to, or Charlie, someone with whom you have some familiarity, that will be able, somebody who is there and looking at how they're doing this?
There isn't an outside financial consultant right now for the facility that is monitoring what is being done. The facility is a member of the Montefiore Health System. It's an affiliate. The expectation is that part of this restructuring will enable the facility to gain a closer relationship with the health system. Frankly, there are a number of facilities that are struggling in the state that the larger healthcare systems would like to see improve somewhat before they are all in. And I think you can call St. Joseph's Hospital one of those facilities.
Okay. Just Sandra, please.
Charlie and Tracy have both articulated very well the need for this hospital, the healthcare need for it, and why they want to go ahead with it. And Matt has given us very good and thorough information on it. What I still haven't heard are arguments for why we should be optimistic that this will work. And I still don't get that. How do we think that this can happen? And in such a short time, 2 3 years is not long. I do what is in this plan.
Well, you have an identifiable liquidity provider that is going to purchase this. You're going to extend it. You give the institution the opportunity to restructure its balance sheet, which gives it time. Doesn't mean it closes the gap, but it gives it time. And to Charlie's point, where hospitals, we're looking for strategic partners, that gives greater incentive to sustain these partnerships.
I mean,
It's
I
not
know
a
those are all
panacea.
the goals and those are all the hopes.
But
It still
you
doesn't
have,
tell me
it
why
becomes
should-
very binary. You either stand still and then try to incrementally tackle this, which then means we have bigger challenges as a state and certainly as possibly a lender, which we would not want to be, versus really creating a pathway and an identifiable liquidity provider that says that there is a market for these securities. There are going to be investors who want to participate in higher yielding municipal securities. That's an important pathway. It's not, like I said, it's not a complete panacea. It's a very important pathway that is central to the world of how you restructure debt, how you recapitalize and rebuild relationships. It's not completely clean.
I
Charlie,
understand the concepts, I just hear it. So.
They've also, though, have expanded into sort of the addiction and residential treatment services, right?
Well,
It
they
is
have.
sort of
They
a
took-
growth
they
area. In
took
some
over-
ways, it's sort of
They took over the
not to look
former
at opioid
St.
addiction as a growth
Vincent's.
industry, but it is.
They took over the former St. Vincent's Psych Hospital a number of years ago. That was something of a lift for them. But that, as a provider, they are rather unique in the area. Now, I look at them as being well positioned to negotiate rates with managed care companies and insurers because they do offer that specific service, and they are well respected in the industry for that. Without a large healthcare system to assist them in that rate negotiation, they don't necessarily have the leverage on their own, and that's one of the features, I think, or one of the benefits that a larger healthcare system like the Montefiore Health System can provide this particular employer. Hospital.
This is Tracy. I don't know if you can hear me. I just wanted to echo Gerard's point as well as Charlie, and say from a policy matter, the department certainly has historically and continues to scrutinize any risks associated with debt extension. However, in this case, we actually look at this as if we were to not proceed with this restructuring, it leaves the facility, which is an essential provider and the largest provider of addiction services in this region, at a disadvantage in terms of its success and future viability. We believe this restructuring best positions the facility for that pathway to success.
And Sandra, I think we hear what you're saying, and following up on what Tracy said, really the sale of the nursing home at this point in time, provides sort of a unique opportunity to try to figure out how to best maximize those resources. So part of that is, in what Tracy's saying, sort of looking at being able to extend some of that debt and really use the sale proceeds in a way to try to help them best make that transition over time.
Well, I suppose I could say that what we are doing could make things worse, but given the limited choices that we have with the time deadlines of the federal tax bill and of the necessity to take some action, that one could argue that it's worth the gamble.
Well, to your point, we all want optimism. And financially, there are not a lot of bases for that. And I understand that perfectly. As I have said to others around the table, I am relying to a large measure on the presentations that Charlie and Tracy have given us. Arguments that, from a public policy perspective, make it almost essential that we get to the end game that they are recommending, while at the same time putting a pin in my own need for more financial optimism, and then asking them to come back to us and let us know on an ongoing basis, and that's probably a Matt request. I'd like to know 6 months from now, a year from now, what progress they are making. Will they have sold the nursing home? Will the debt restructuring have begun? What will they have done over that period of time? And if we could get that information, at least, well, one of two things will happen. Either we will find reasons to be more optimistic or not. And we'll have to see what happens. But that's where I am.
Provide an update at the June board meeting.
Yes, I'm suggesting exactly that.
Yes.
We don't have the option of requesting to go back and look at elements of this plan and tweak them, adjust them. We don't have that.
That is my understanding, that we don't have that
We don't.
opportunity. It's a today
Don't give
decision.
the tax bill
Yeah.
looming before us. If we did, I would be asking that, but we don't have that time, so.
Okay, I understand.
But
Are
I
there
have
other questions for?
One other question.
Yes, John.
The hospitals that have been challenged in Brooklyn that we've heard about now for
Yes.
a decade. Every one of those restructurings always involves management consultants, financial overseers, this, that, and the other thing that are all triggered in. All I see in this is the same people.
Right. The point that Sandra made earlier. It's
Yeah,
why I asked
that's-
Charlie whether
yeah,
or not there
so-
would be a
Is there
financial
an
consultant.
opportunity,
management
if it's approved today, is there an opportunity for that sort of stuff to still happen from the Department of Health point of view?
Who's going to be helping make this work?
Yes, how's this, what agency's gonna make this work?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying and suggesting. And I can take those concerns back, but at this point, up to this point, we have not been actively discussing if someone to oversee operations from a financial perspective.
But this is Tracy. If I may, I will say we certainly can consider that proposal and request going forward. But I will also echo and repeat that it is, we understand that Montefiore, while they are not the, as we call, active parent yet, they are significantly involved, with this facility in its planning, and we would only expect that relationship will get stronger going forward. But with that said, we can consider discussing an external financial consultant with the facility.
Well, Tracy, I think both would be appropriate. It would be good to understand what the elements of a growing relationship between the two institutions would consist of. I don't know how you would know, but I'd like to know how you would know that the relationship between St. Joseph's and Montefiore is improving, is growing, because that would be another cause for some optimism. I don't know how you get there, whether or not the institution would share that with us, whether Montefiore would share it with us, but it would be good to know that, and to be able to know that at some point we're going to get some information that tells us that that relationship is improving or that it's not.
It does appear that they're being guided somewhat. If you look at the time period involved, it was late 15, early 16.
Yeah.
When the Montefiore group came in. Now, certainly we're not involved in the discussions, but the evidence seems to suggest that they're being assisted some way by
Guiding hand.
Montefiore, a guiding
Light.
right.
Are there further questions or comments on
They did
this?
the clinical affiliation with Montefiore in late 15. I guess I'm reading into that.
I mean, they're there, but
Right.
we don't know whether they
Yes,
had any
right,
effect or not.
Right.
All right.
Correct. Right.
Assuming there are no further, I'm asking, are there further comments or questions? Hearing none, I think it's time for us to make a decision about this. May I have a motion, please?
I don't think they.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't let the two lawyers forgive me.
Jumped in.
We'll
be brief.
You're going to explain the structure of the financing to us. Thank you, and I apologize.
We went through the bond letter already.
We all just read it.
Thank you very much for that presentation.
Good morning, Patrick McGlashan Law Firm. Before you for consideration for adoption are a new resolution entitled St. Joseph Hospital Yonkers Obligated Group Revenue Bond Resolution, and two series resolutions entitled Series 2017A Resolution and Series 2000B Resolution. Together, the resolutions will authorize the issuance of $27 million of the authority's St. Joseph Hospital Yonkers Obligated Group Revenue Bonds, Series 2017A and Series 2017B. I'll refer to these bonds as the Series 2017 bonds. My law firm, McGlashan Law Firm PC, and Barclay Damon LLP will be working together as co-bond counsel in connection with the issuance of the Series 2017 bonds. The funds paid for the Series 2017 bonds will benefit St. Joseph Hospital in Yonkers. The institutions, as you've discussed, provide medical services at the St. Joseph Medical Center in Yonkers. The Series 2017 bonds will be issued in one series of tax-exempt bonds and one series of taxable bonds. The purpose of the Series 2017 bonds will be to finance and refinance a portion of the cost of construction, reconstruction, and equipping of a medical village located at the institution's Yonkers campus, and to acquire equipment to establish a shuttle service for patients. Also to refund the institution's outstanding Yonkers IDA Revenue Bonds Series 1998C, to refinance a commercial bank loan whose proceeds were used to acquire the former St. Vincent Psychiatric Hospital of Westchester, and to refinance certain outstanding equipment loans. The general resolution is a new resolution which provides for the issuance from time to time of multiple series of bonds in an unlimited aggregate principal amount for the benefit of St. Joseph. The general resolution is an agreement between the authority and the holders of the bonds issued under the general resolutions. The Series 2017A bonds and the Series 2017B bonds will be the first and second series of bonds issued under the general resolutions. Bonds issued under the general resolutions may be issued in for one or more purposes, including to refinance and to finance the cost of one or more projects, to fund a debt service reserve fund if one is established by a series resolution, to fund interest accruing and payable during constructions and startup operations. The general resolution set forth the terms that apply to each series of bonds, including the conditions for issuance of each series, security for the bond, funds and accounts, and the flow of monies through those funds and accounts. The bonds which may be authorized under the general resolutions may be bonds that bear fixed interest rates. They may be capital appreciation bonds, deferred income bonds, option bonds, or variable interest bonds. The bonds of each series are special obligations of the authority payable solely from applicable revenues, money and investments held in funds and accounts established by the general resolutions and the applicable series resolutions, proceeds derived from any obligation, mortgage assignment, or security agreement delivered to secure the payments under the applicable loan agreement. The general resolution authorizes the authority to establish a fund and fund a debt service reserve fund by a series resolution. The 2017 resolutions, however, do not establish a debt service reserve fund for the Series 2017 bonds. The Bank of New York Mellon will be the trustee for the Series 2017 bonds. With that, I'll turn it over to my co-counsel, Connie Cal of Barclay Damon, to review certain terms of the series resolution, the loan agreement, and the master indenture.
As Patrick referenced, there are two series resolutions before you for adoption. The A resolution authorizes the issuance of tax-exempt bonds. The B resolution authorizing the issuance of taxable bonds. Both series of bonds will be secured by the funds and accounts established by the series resolutions, and a pledge to the trustee of payments to be made to the authority under the loan agreement, and obligation number one issued under the master trust indenture, which I'll explain in a moment. As we've discussed, in accordance with the authority's financing guidelines for independent institutions, the series resolutions contain restrictions on the beneficial ownership and transfer of bonds. Specifically, the series resolutions restrict ownership of the bonds to qualified institutional buyers. That requirement is also, as we noted, prominently placed on each bond. The series resolutions contain the standard delegations to various officers of the authority, including the power to determine the principal amount of each series of bonds, maturity dates, interest rates, the terms of the sale, denominations, redemption dates, terms, dates, and prices, as well as any other matters that are not inconsistent with either the series resolution or the general resolution. The series resolution also contains authorize various officers of the authority to execute the assignment agreement, the bond placement agreement, to prepare and deliver a bond issuance circular, and to execute any other documents and do anything else that's necessary, convenient in connection with the issuance of the bonds. There'll be a standard loan agreement between the authority and the institution, which will require that the institution make payments sufficient to pay principal and interest on the bonds. The institution's obligations under the loan agreement are general obligations of the institution and are complete and unconditional obligations. At the closing, the authority will assign its rights under the loan agreement to the trustee pursuant to an assignment agreement subject to certain retained rights of the authority. This is a master trust indenture structure, so every obligation issued under the master trust indenture will be a joint and several obligations of the members of the obligated group. However, at this time, the institution is the only member of the obligated group. Every obligation issued under the master trust indenture will be secured by a pledge of the gross revenues of the institution, as well as a mortgage on St. Joseph's Medical Center campus, the neighboring parking garage, and the St. Vincent's Psychiatric Hospital campus in Harrison. The master indenture also includes certain financial covenants and other covenants applicable to the institution. It does allow the issuance of additional debt, but subject to certain prescribed limitations. The Series 2017 bonds will be sold to the QUIB in a private placement effectuated through a bond placement agreement among the authority of the institution, the purchaser, and/or PC Ziegler Company, which is acting as a placement agent. It's currently expected that the bonds are going to be issued at fixed rates of interest, as Matt mentioned, with level debt service, and that will amortize the taxable bonds before the tax-exempt bonds are amortized. If you have any questions, Patrick and I are happy to address them.
Connie, thank you. Patrick, thank you. Are there questions for Connie and Patrick? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction?
So moved.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Is there a second? Jerry, thank you. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Thank you, Sandra. There are none opposed. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Behind tab 5 is the hospital for special surgery transaction with Gerard Clauser presenting the credit summary and staff report.
Sorry, I missed it.
Oh, we're HSS.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, George.
Mr. Chairman. The staff report provided to the members is seeking authorization for a resolution to proceed for the Hospital for Special Surgery. This will be a publicly offered or privately placed 30-year bond issue in an amount not to exceed $160 million on behalf of the Hospital for Special Surgery. The Hospital for Special Surgery is a financially sound hospital which provides a wide range of orthopedic and rheumatology-related inpatient, ambulatory, and ancillary services, primarily to residents of New York City's 5 boroughs and the surrounding suburban counties of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. The hospital is committed to both basic and clinical research as a component of the overall hospital mission and is critical to the hospital maintaining and enhancing its standing internationally recognized and premier hospital in the fields of orthopedics and rheumatology. Financing that you are considering today will advance refund the DASNY Hospital for Special Surgery FHA-insured mortgage hospital revenue bonds, Series 2009, in the amount of $71.895 million. In addition, the Hospital for Special Surgery Ginnie Mae taxable revenue bonds, Series 2011 and 2015, in the amounts of $32.37 million and $39.12 million, respectively. The hospital is planning to exit the FHA program and eliminate the restrictive requirements. The hospital's strong financial performance should allow the hospital to issue unenhanced debt. The proposed restructuring will produce level debt service. Although a 30-year amortization is being requested, the debt service proposal is subject to DOH and tax council approval. Security. The proposed bonds will be secured by a pledge of the hospital revenues and mortgages on certain real property if required. Highlights. Some highlights include operating gains the last 5 years, averaging $59.1 million, an operating margin of 4.54% in 2016. Other items worth noting include 189 days cash on hand, which is far above the regional and DASNY medians, The hospital has demonstrated strong financial results, including solid liquidity, strong debt service coverage, quality services, and a favorable mix of third-party payers. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you very much, Gerard. Questions for Gerard? Sandra?
Gerard, what are the advantages that would accrue to the hospital from being out of the FHA program?
The FHA program is quite restrictive. There are significant, debt service reserve funds, mortgage reserve funds, and they are required to have letters of credit. In addition, even mortgage servicing. They're restrictive as far as allowing the hospital flexibility in doing any other finances or anything like that as well. So this by stepping away from the FHA program, it would help the hospital significantly. Another one of the significant issues here is that they will be able to level out their debt service, and I think the intent to increase their rating or substantiate their rating and be able to allow to issue debt on their own.
Might it also free up some existing debt service reserve funds?
It absolutely will, yes, and mortgage reserve funds.
Good, thank you.
It's okay.
Yeah,
Sandra, thank you.
For the board's information, back in the 80s and 90s, a lot of the healthcare institutions, especially in New York State, accessed the FHA mortgage insurance program. That was all that was available to them. Municipal bond insurance was not available. The FHA insurance program is really not an efficient credit enhancement. There's a lot of additional cost. There's a lot of restrictions. They have to amortize the debt over a 25-year period, and they're financing 40-year assets. There's various letter of credits they have to get for certain periods of time. So it's really inefficient, and anything that they want to do basically has to be run by FHA, which if they want to expand or look at different markets or different services, that all has to go through FHA. So by getting out of the program, it makes them that much more nimble to deal with the ever-changing healthcare environment that we're operating in, and it also allows them to structure their debt so that they can create overall level debt corporate-wide.
All good reasons to.
Very good reasons.
Yes, other institutions in similar circumstances.
That are coming up. Are there questions, any further questions for Gerard, or Andy, for that matter, for the history of FHA? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction? Beryl, thank you. Sandra, thank you for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Gerard does double duty here today. You get to stay.
Behind tab 6 is the Montefiore Medical Center transaction with Gerard Clauser and Craig Schreiber presenting the credit summary and staff reports.
I just want to give the members a quick note. There was a correction made to the credit summary to identify the 2008 bonds as DASNY issued bonds as opposed to MICFA issued bonds. So you will have just a one page. The only change is a redlined identification of DASNY issued bonds as opposed to MICFA.
Under the new issue details, your purpose, the first paragraph currently reads, what you have reads, current refunding of MICFA Montefiore Medical Center. That should be DASNY, Montefiore Medical Center.
Right, in the black line version of that reflects that changes before the members in the packages.
Right, it's on the table. Just, I thought easier to refer to it quickly, cross out MICFA and add that.
Thanks for that clarification, Chairman. Staff report provided to the members is seeking authorization for a resolution to proceed for the Montefiore Medical Center. This will be a publicly offered or privately placed bond issue in an amount not to exceed $640 million and a term not to exceed 30 years on behalf of the Montefiore Medical Center. The bonds may be issued in one or more series as tax-exempt or taxable in fixed and or variable rate mode. The hospital's primary service area is the Bronx in southern Westchester County. The hospital holds a 34% market share. The hospital's occupancy rate has been consistently high and was 89.55% in 2016, far above the regional and DASNY medians. The financing that you are considering this morning will be a current refunding of the DASNY-issued Montefiore Medical Center FHA-insured mortgage hospital revenue bonds, Series 2008, in an amount of $64.965 million. In addition, the Montefiore Medical Center Ginnie Mae collateralized taxable revenue bonds, Series 2011, 2016A, and 2016B, in the amounts of $73.05 million and $226.7 million. In addition to the refinancing of $233 million of debt related to affiliate hospitals will be refunded. The hospital is planning to exit the FHA program and eliminate restrictive requirements. The hospital's financial performance may allow the hospital to issue unenhanced debt. The proposed restructuring will produce level debt service. Although a 30-year amortization is being requested, the debt service proposal is subject to DOH and Tax Council approval. Security provisions. An obligation issued under the Master Trust indenture will be secured by a pledge of the medical center's gross receipts, a debt service reserve fund if required by investors, a mortgage on the medical center facilities if required by the investors. Some financial highlights include the medical center has been profitable in each of the past 5 years, with an operating gain of $105 million in 2013 and $18 million in 2016. Other items worth noting include 74 days cash on hand, which is far above the regional median and in line with the DASNY median, and a debt service ratio of 2.09. Mr. Chairman?
Gerard, thank you. Are there questions for Gerard or Craig? Yes, Paul.
The risk related to the capitated payment program, how can that be quantified?
This hospital is very active in the capitated space, and they have, done quite well. Their capitation payments are, across Medicare, Medicaid, and private buyers or private insurers, and they seem to have been, worked this surgically, actually, very successfully. So I don't know that, I know that they have performed well in the past. As far as any risk or additional exposure, I'm not aware.
I think that the only answer to that is management. And this management, over the course of the last decade or so, has really worked very hard. That has been their goal. Look at the payer mix, it is heavily Medicaid, and they have been able to manage their way through on a value-based and capitated basis to actually being profitable on that particular goal of serving that clientele and being able to put cash in the bank at the end of the year. The last couple of years, they have been making significant investments in bringing other people, other institutions in the area along into the same direction. They have been, they were a success in the Medicare program, which was an ACO program, and they have really been far in the forefront of many of their colleagues in their work in the capitated payment group.
Is there, so as a function of good management, and I'm sure over time they establish better management procedures in managing the risk, but do they face a risk, is there a risk of some sort of catastrophic loss under a program like that?
There is generally, you are managing the health of the population that you're responsible for, and essentially whatever that population needs is what you have an obligation to cover. And so yes, you can have outliers. You can have particular cases that go beyond what you're getting paid for. Charlie, is there anything that you would want to add?
Yeah, the model is, you take a look at the population for which the facility is going to be responsible for. You take a look at what has been paid by the insurers that have entered into an agreement with, that had been caring for that population. Generally speaking, the facilities believe, and they make a commitment that they can take care of that population better for less cost. So they establish a price based on that expectation, and they have to provide the case management services to care properly for the individuals. And the expectation is through their case management, they will be able to direct these individuals to the best care model for their particular ailment, and of course keep people out of more costly hospitals and nursing homes and the like. For the outliers, and there are, let's face it, there are outliers that some folks, some providers call them frequent flyers, but those individuals who wind up showing up at emergency rooms into the hospital, they seem to be constantly sick. They're consuming great amount of services at great expense. The tried and true, the tested and successful strategy is to be able to ensure that they get case management services. Someone who is going to be able to work with those outliers intently, direct them to care, remind them to go to follow-up appointments, remind them to take their medication. And those models have demonstrated to be effective in terms of reducing healthcare expenses for those individuals and keeping those individuals well. So that's the model that these capitated plans seek to duplicate. And as Larry indicated, at least thus far, Montefiore has been a successful and a leader in that payment model in New York State.
Terrific. Thank you, Joe. And Larry, thank you. Other questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve? Darrell, thank you. Charlie, thank you for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. And Craig, I want to thank you for being here today. It's your first day at this table, I think. It's a pleasure to have you here and to know that they've got you to back them up.
Yeah, I helped her out a little bit on the report, but it was fun.
Well, welcome.
We should have thought of some hard questions. Next time.
Thank you.
Behind tab 7 is the Maimonides Medical Center transaction with Andy Purcell and Peter Ten Eck, presenting the credit summary of staff report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The board is being asked to adopt a resolution to proceed in an amount not to exceed $225 million from Maimonides Medical Center. The medical center provides a comprehensive array of acute care inpatient services to residents of southern Brooklyn and tertiary care inpatient services to the entire borough of Brooklyn. The proposed financing includes refinancing of various obligations of the medical center and a small new money component. The bonds will be issued with a maximum term of 30 years, subject to Department of Health approval and tax council approval. The bonds will be issued as tax exempt and/or taxable, fixed and/or variable rate, issued at one or more times in one or more series, and be sold on a negotiated or private placement basis. Proceeds from the proposed bond issue will be used to refinance Maimonides Medical Center Ginnie Mae Collateralized Taxable Revenue Bonds, Series 2013, the refinancing of various capital leases, many of which have front-loaded debt service, the refinancing of a construction loan and line of credit that was used to fund minor repairs, upgrade furnishings, and medical equipment throughout the hospital, and the financing of a small new money component, which consists of the additional operating room and renovation of the CT ICU, and to repair various facilities, including the parking garage. The medical center would like to create corporate-wide overall level debt service to the extent possible, which could include the extension of the final maturities of some of the debt refinanced. This will require the approval of the Department of Health and Tax Council. Security for the bonds will consist of an obligation issued under a master trust indenture, which will be secured by a pledge of the medical center's gross receipts. There may be a debt service reserve fund and a mortgage on the medical center's core hospital facilities if required by investors. The bonds are expected to be rated in the BBB category. As is common with the other two healthcare deals that were before you this morning, the medical center is planning to exit the FHA program, which will enable it to free up collateral, reduce costs, and eliminate restrictive requirements. The proposed bond issue will bring the medical center back into DASNY's healthcare portfolio, and they've always met their obligations on time. In 2015, the medical center entered into a 3-year clinical affiliation and collaboration agreement with Northwell Health to assist the medical center in expanding its clinical footprint and improving the medical center's financial condition. The goal of this affiliation is for Northwell Health to eventually become the sole member or parent of the medical center, at which time the medical center will be fully integrated into and will function as the Brooklyn hub of Northwell Health. Although achievement of this goal is not certain, that is the plan. The medical center is currently in discussions with Northwell Health to extend this agreement. The medical center offers several nationally recognized and accredited centers of excellence, including a heart and vascular center, an outpatient breast center and cancer center, and a stroke center. The medical center's inpatient activity has been relatively stable over the past 5 years. And I would point the board members to the attention of page 4. If you look at the table in the middle of the page, probably in the middle of the page, there's a line item for current portion of long-term debt. If you look at fiscal year 2014 and 15, you can see that their current debt almost tripled from the year before. So the effect of this financing is try to level out their overall debt on a corporate-wide basis. Mr. Chairman.
Andy, thank you. Questions for Andy? Yes, Ed.
Andy, you note in here that the debt service coverage ratio has really fluctuated in this period.
Yeah.
Is that a function of the overall level of debt, or those capital leases that are front-loaded, or is it both?
It's the overall debt that has the impact on their debt coverage, yeah.
So we're not reducing it, it's leveling it out?
Exactly.
It's going to help with that fluctuation?
Exactly.
But not necessarily with the coverage ratio itself? Just
Well, it'll improve their coverage, obviously. As you level out the debt, that's factored into the calculation. So
Okay.
creating level debt service helps them from those coverage ratios.
Okay, thank you.
Sandra, thank you. Thanks, Andy. Other questions for Andy? Hearing none, may I have a motion please to approve?
So
Sandra, thank you. Charlie, thank you for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Peter, welcome to the table. It's good to have you here. We've heard how much work you've done to support Andy, and he very much appreciates it, as do we.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Behind tab 8 is the Cornell University transaction with Dave Ostrander presenting the quick summary and staff report.
Welcome, David.
Morning. The staff report provided to the members presents one or more series of tax-exempt and/or taxable fixed and/or variable rate bonds in an amount not to exceed $1.25 billion, with final maturities not to exceed 40 years on behalf of Cornell University. Bond proceeds will be used for new money, refunding, and refinancing purposes. Approximately $300 million will be used to finance the university's North Campus residential expansion, which would create up to 2,000 new undergraduate beds, together with supporting dining, parking, recreational, and other supporting infrastructure. Approximately $150 million in new money proceeds would also be used to finance deferred maintenance projects across the university's system. The refunding component is approximately $716.8 million. These proceeds will be used to refund all or a portion of Cornell's 1990B, 2008B and C, 2009A, and 2010A bonds. The remaining portion of the financing would be used to refinance both tax-exempt commercial paper issued by DASNY as well as refinancing taxable commercial paper issued by the university. Cornell University has been a client of DASNY all the way back to 1961, issuing $2.1 billion over that time. They are a strong credit, AA1 from Moody's and AA- from S&P, both with stable outlooks. And accordingly, Cornell qualifies for an unsecured borrowing under DASNY's financing guidelines. A couple of credit highlights. Student demand and enrollment remains strong for the university's undergraduate and graduate programs. Applications are up over 5 years, and overall total FTE enrollment increased by 4.3%, reaching 23,388 for fall of 2016. Over that time, Cornell has become increasingly selective, accepting only 14.1% of applications for fall of 2016. The university's revenue composition is extremely diverse. For fiscal year 2017, only 21% of revenues came from student-generated sources. And lastly, Cornell's balance sheet demonstrates strong and growing financial resources and solid liquidity. Unrestricted net assets is increased by 13.5% over 5 years, reaching $3.1 billion as of fiscal year end 2017. And as of fiscal year end 2017, the university reported total net assets of over $10 billion. Mr. Chairman.
David, thank you very much. Are there questions for David on this proposed budget?
Is there any concern here about the new tax on their endowment? And how that will impact the ability to sell these bonds?
It's a new tax on their endowment income, isn't it?
Well, it's a tax on their endowment income of 1.5% roughly.
Yeah, that's his memo.
Right. Is there concern about it? Broadly, yes. And I think that's a concern not only for Cornell but for other institutions in New York and throughout the country. And the amount of the tax, there are a lot of questions with regard to the tax. But if it is adopted, the amount of it would be in the millions likely.
But Cornell is strong enough that it still has very significant assets on its balance sheet.
No question.
That this institution is solid, highly rated bonds, and just the type of institution that we should be supporting.
Absolutely, Beryl. Absolutely. Other questions for David? Sandra?
What's the thinking, David, behind the possibility of 40-year bonds?
I think it's just giving the university maximum flexibility. The final structure hasn't been determined, but given their history, they typically issue 30-year bonds. But just to give them flexibility, the useful life of the assets that'll be financed for the residential expansion will likely exceed 40 years, so they wanted that flexibility. Typically, they issue 30-year bonds.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Sandra. Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction, one of the largest we've ever done?
Certainly, yes.
Thank you, Sandra. Gerard, thank you for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. David, thank you.
Thank you.
And the next agenda item is the report of the president. Gerard.
Thank you. We've got a few Gerards here, so we always have to be careful. As we prepare for 2018, I'd like to take a few minutes to reflect on what we have accomplished together this year. We certainly have a lot to be grateful for. We are ending the year with an enormous amount of activity as we deliver One DASNY, the complete integration of all of our resources in finance, design, and construction. It is an effort that includes the creation of efficiencies across the entire organization. We have established 17 work groups in 3 areas: strategy, construction, and private client financing. This bottom-up process, we are delivering plans to grow top-line revenue, improve risk management, and create efficiencies. For example, the Small Projects Planning Committee has begun assessing workflow and creating efficiencies to simplify the process when working with clients such as the New York State Office for people with developmental disabilities, and the City University of New York. In a few moments, Paul Koopman and Dan Petroff will provide greater detail on each of these teams and the work they are doing. We are also preparing for a number of changes that could impact our business, including the future of private activity bonds for nonprofits and advanced refunding. Thank you for helping us accommodate our private clients by having additional meetings so we could get them to the market. We are working with the Governor's Office and other entities across the state and nation to support the continuation of private activity bonds in their current form and are examining our businesses to be prepared if the measure passes as proposed by the House. So far this calendar year, we have executed 20 issuances valued at approximately $7.2 billion. We began 2017 by expanding our MWBE capacity and creating new opportunities for MWBEs by launching our surety bond training program and selecting our first MWBE firm as our broker of record for our general excess liability insurance program. In one day, this board approved $2.9 billion to fund projects statewide that are growing our economy and keeping New York State competitive. In 2017, we provided more than $250 million in low-cost financings for not-for-profit healthcare providers and more than $890 million for private not-for-profit higher education institutions. These financings help pave the way to support projects like the $16 million conversion of Bishop Hall at Buffalo State College. We are speeding Residence Hall delivery through the use of alternative delivery methods, including design build for the $21 million 256-bed Residence Hall at SUNY Brockport. We are also increasing energy efficiency at CUNY's campuses to the tune of $380 million. DASNY's low-cost financing support extended beyond SUNY and CUNY systems to help 54 school districts throughout New York State save $17 million in 2017. We are also supporting tourism and growing economies in Western New York by completing upgrades to Niagara Falls State Park, part of Governor Cuomo's $70 million revitalization effort. This work positions us to hit the ground running in 2018. We are very excited about what is to come for DASNY. We recognize there are pending challenges to our business. We're not in the business of managing uncertainty, we're in the business of managing risk. And so with that risk, we are positioned ably and thinking thoughtfully about how we can accommodate and work with our private clients and our public clients, whatever that new milieu will look like. And with that, I will turn it over to Paul Koopman and Dan Petroff, who will now fill you in on more details regarding the one DASNY committees we have established and the work they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Good morning.
Paul, Dan, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Sorry about that. Building on our work with Ernst & Young, we are now implementing the One DASNY Change Management Initiative. I'm going to give a high-level overview, and then Paul is going to provide detail on how we are advancing the work. As you recall, the overall goals of One DASNY are grow DASNY's business, align our risk management practices with the risk DASNY faces, and create efficiencies by streamlining processes, leveraging technology, and increasing the flexibility of our procurement and delivery methods. Through unit meetings, training sessions, and president's messages, we have shared with the staff these goals and our work with EY. We have also infused these goals into our ongoing internal and external communications regarding the progress of the One DASNY initiative. So, how are we actually proceeding to achieve these goals? As Paul will describe in more detail, we've established 17 teams in 3 areas: strategy, construction, and private client financing. We have given each team a specific mission while granting wide latitude to devise solutions for achieving that mission, so long as those solutions are in keeping with the overall One DASNY goals. Again, revenue growth, risk management, and increasing efficiency. As will be discussed later in today's meeting, we are also looking to retain outside counsel to assist the staff and the board with the private client financing initiatives. Our initial work with EY involved a broad cross-section of staff. We are now going even further with more than 100 staff at all levels of the organization involved in implementation. There's been significant interest and enthusiasm for the initiative, with additional staff members coming forward and asking to be involved, and we have found ways to include them as well. By design, the teams are cross-functional, both to ensure the broadest perspective as we analyze areas for improvement, and to reinforce the larger theme that we are one integrated DASNY. We have charged the teams and empowered the staff to make meaningful, tangible improvements in how we fulfill our mission. As Paul will describe, the teams are delivering.
Good morning. So as we put in front of you, there are 3 groups of teams in the strategy, construction, and private clients area. So we've got 17 teams established. As Dan mentioned, over 100 employees are involved actively on these teams. However, I want to mention, in addition, as this communication went out to all of DASNY, other participants throughout the organization have been asked to give us their ideas as well. So the input that we're getting is not just from the team members themselves, but other people in the grants area, people through legal. So throughout the organization, we're getting ideas coming into the teams, and we've established and told all our staff who these team leaders are, so there's a conduit or an avenue for people to participate outside the working group. So we really have involved all the DASNY organization. In the strategy area, we've got 3 groups. We've got a market expansion, a key account management group, and an enterprise risk management group. In the construction area, we've got a small projects planning group. We've got process areas of work authorization and job work orders. We're also looking at technology in the construction area through our refining of data and reporting strategies and identifying and implementing electronic tools for procurement. And then we've got various teams looking at process in the private clients financing area as well. So overall, I just want to, again, we highlighted the 100 staff involved, but also just to dive a little bit deeper into a couple of the groups, one in particular being the small project delivery. Initially applied to the OPW CMM Community Minor Maintenance Program, this group has been very active in looking at strategies for moving ahead these projects. And in fact, we are actually now looking to expand into other programs, specifically CUNY. They've approached us as well to identify efficiencies for delivering small projects. So really, we're already seeing some dividends applied to the work effort that we've put into the small projects. In addition to the committee, the Small Projects Committee, we're now establishing a lean improvement task workforce that will specifically look into job work orders and work authorizations. We've engaged an outside resource from the state, the lean task force or lean work group, but we're also having it led internally by Nick Sorelli and Lou Sorelli, and they will be working directly with our staff to look at process improvements in the work authorization and job work order areas. These are 2 key procurement strategies that we use in the delivery of small projects. So the combination of the small project group as well as this job work authorization and job work order and work authorization work groups, we will definitely see some significant results coming out of those work groups. As the groups develop their recommendations, they're being brought up and discussed with senior management. We have a bi-weekly One DASNY strategy session, and they're discussed for consideration, and we will continue to advance this throughout the year. And lastly, we've formalized a communications plan to keep staff apprised of all the actions we're undertaking and ensuring that any training that's necessary that comes as a result of any of the procedural improvements we make are discussed with staff and that they are provided the appropriate training. So with that, we'll open up to questions, discussion.
Can you give us a sense of timelines? Is all of this happening concurrently? Is it staggered? And what's your general overall timeline?
Right now, most of the work groups, there were a few where in the finance area that have not been established yet, but roughly, I think 14 or so work groups are already underway. They're having meetings, they're actively discussing procedural improvements. The Small Projects Committee has been working now for probably close to 2 months. Again, we're seeing some strategies coming out of that work group that we're applying to other clients. So we're attacking at all fronts. And the Lean work group has already kicked off, and they'll be starting in earnest probably over the next few weeks.
Is it all ongoing, or are there deadlines, or?
We've given them short time frames without necessarily dictating, saying it has to be done. But these are things we want to see done over the next few months. You know, there's some low-hanging fruit that we're looking them to attack, and then to the extent the committees can come back with specific recommendations that we can implement right away, we're doing that. So again, small projects being an example, we've already attacked some of the areas there and are applying those new improvements.
Paul, under private client financing, and maybe this is more appropriate for that group, the last item, fee schedule and menu approach, would you tell me what that is? Fee schedules, I understand. Well, what's the menu approach?
Yeah, since I'm kind of the head of the public finance side of the equation, really.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And thank you,
The
Amy.
menu approach is for maybe some of our more sophisticated clients or frequent borrowers that we don't provide all the services that we currently do. Maybe they get to pick and choose what services they may want. Like, instead of us doing their investments, maybe they do their investments. They might be better suited to do that. So that's kind of the approach. And, you know, from a process perspective, we're trying to address the process first before we start looking at our fees, some of the administrative stuff we do, because from our perspective, it's better to refine the process and then work against that framework.
And it gives your major clients the opportunity to cherry pick
Exactly.
precisely what they want, as opposed to what we want to
Right.
give them.
And one thing that came out of the EY study was that not our upfront fee, but our annual fee
Yes.
is significantly higher than our competitors.
Okay.
So maybe by doing this, we may be able to adjust our fee, make us that much more attractive, and be able to generate additional business.
Okay.
So,
Like cable television.
Exactly.
I would get the
I never would have made the leap, but yeah, just like cable television.
All of this combined, so we're doing all of this at this moment. Timelines will vary, but this is really reflective of a very aggressive approach at integration and collaboration, rather than having these very well-defined organizations inside DASNY with no synergy.
Okay.
With no synergy. And so we do compete, and we don't compete on fees. So we are going to actively tackle that. But we may not find ourselves in a space where our fee structure looks like some of our competitors. So what does that mean? It means that we look to succeed purely on value. And there is no institution across the state that will reflect the intellectual capital that is resident in this institution, both on the construction, public finance, and the finance side. So the thinking that we have had working with EY and working independently, because now this is driven by these individuals with a broader team. Andy is part of that. Gail Katzman, our communications team. This is everyone's job. This is not just my job. This is everyone's job. And that is to focus on how we deliver greater value, higher impacts, make sure we have the right processes in place, ask the right questions. What are the right things to do? What are the things that we should stop doing? And then most importantly, be self-reflective. And I think this has been an incredible learning experience for each and every one of us. And I'm amazed at what I see from people. They want to jump in and do more. So This is, I can't tell you this is the beginning, because we've been doing this now for close to 2 years, but this is the beginning of the integration process.
May we expect regular reports as
You will have
some
regular
of the
reports.
results that come
Yeah,
from
this
this?
is-
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
You will have regular reports, absolutely.
Excellent.
Terrific. No, if there are no further questions for Gerard, Paul, and Dan, may I have a motion, please, to go into an executive session to discuss the credit histories and financial history of particular corporations?
So moved.
Thank you, Sandra. Is there a second? Thank you very much, Charlie. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. None opposed. We are in executive session. Thank you, Kim. The record will reflect that we've just had a closed session, executive session. We've returned to the public session. There were no decisions made during the closed session other than to return to the public session. We're going to go directly to the General Counsel's report. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The memorandum included with my report recommends that DASNY engage Squire Patton Boggs LLP as strategic counsel to provide legal advice and counsel to DASNY staff and board of directors on the development of a comprehensive strategic plan for the integration of DASNY's resources in finance, construction management, and design, as well as corporate operations. This planning initiative, referred to as One DASNY, has been described by the president, Mr. Koopman, and others, Mr. Petroff and Andy Purcell as well, and includes the formulation of legal and non-legal strategies to improve DASNY's top-line growth, properly manage risk, and identify pathways for greater efficiency, collaboration, and coordination. As noted in my memorandum, President Bushell and I have had the opportunity to meet with representatives of Squire Patton and also consider other firms on DASNY's procured counsel panels, and we believe that Squire Patton is best positioned to represent DASNY in this capacity. Final point, Section 4.4 of DASNY's bylaws requires board approval of any contract for general corporate purposes of DASNY that is in excess of $300,000. After reviewing consultation with DASNY, Squire estimates its cost for the proposed engagement will not exceed $500,000, inclusive of disbursements. The anticipated duration of this engagement is 6 to 8 months. A resolution approving this retention of counsel is included in the materials, and I recommend approval of the resolution. Thank you.
Description is behind tab 13. Are there any questions for Mike? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the strategic counsel hire? So moved. Thank you very much, Sandra. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, Paul. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. There are none opposed. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have some comments, but I'm going to pass on that because it's all in my report.
Got it.
And turn it over to Mike Corrigan.
Michael.
Afternoon. I'll go quickly at the back of the presentation, which is tab 9. There are materials on 2 bargaining agreements that were recently ratified by CSDA Local 698 and Local 1000, which represent employees of DASNY. The first agreement with Local 698 represents about 400 of our employees, the vast majority of our employees. Just at a very high level, it's a 5-year agreement retroactive to 4/1/16 through 3/31/21. It's hard to say 3/31/21.
Yes, it is.
The agreement includes general salary increases of 2% on an annual basis, again retroactive to 4/1/16. The agreement also increases on a phase basis the family share for employees of our health insurance from 29 to 31% later in the contract for new employees that come in after 1/1/21. Other than that, there's some minor, I'll call them tweaks to the salary schedules to fix some unintended consequences that were unfair to some employees, but they also were hamper management's ability to use employees most effectively.
Mike, thank you.
For the record, this approval would not result in a budget deficit.
I'm sorry, but what I should say is that after I get done with the CSA agreements, it will not result in a budget deficit. We will need to increase the spending caps that were in the existing budget, and we'll introduce those after we get done with the agreements, but it does not result in a budget deficit.
The members have had an opportunity to read both the cover memo that Gerard provided and to see the black line version of any of the documents. Looking for...
The resolution is right after the cover memo.
Is it? Okay, thanks. And I was looking for the second resolution. I have the first one, but we're going to vote on them separately, so... The CSEA Local 698 Collective Bargaining Agreement Resolution is immediately behind the cover memo. You all have had a chance to take a look at it. It is the resolution itself is very simple, and Mike has just outlined what the essential changes are. Are there any questions for Mike? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution? Gerard, thank you. Is there a second? Paul, thank you. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. None opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Mike, thank you.
The second collective bargaining agreement is with our janitorial assistant staff as well as security guards. That's
there it is.
Behind this one has the same general salary terms, and that is essentially the major item included in that contract. They represent mechanical employees currently.
Well, thank you. The second resolution, difficult to find in the packet, but if you went through the agreements or the particular black line copy, it's self-explanatory. Mike has just supplemented the resolution. I'm sorry, the memorandum that covers it. Are there any questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve it?
Move approval.
Thank you, Sandra. Is there a second? Charlie, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. There are none opposed. The second resolution passes unanimously. Okay.
At this point, I'll turn it over to Kim, who will talk about our mid-year financial update as well as our proposed budget.
Thank you, Mike. As you saw in the materials, I did provide a memo that outlines a proposed budget increase. The budget increase is necessary as a result of several events that have occurred after the board approved the budget, one of which is the CSEA and other union contracts that were just approved, as well as the salary increases for management confidential employees that the board approved in July. That was pursuant to the DOB bulletins that were issued earlier in the year. We also had significant increases in our workload in the grants administration department, primarily due to the SAM grant program. We hired additional staff to address that workload increase. We have also had an increase in our health insurance costs. That's primarily due to the fact that we have a higher share of retirees participating than we had anticipated in the budget, and we pay 90+% of the premiums for our retirees. When you bring all of those factors together, we are asking for an approximate $4 million increase in the operating budget. There is a resolution included in your package.
The resolution is the last page on tab 10. Kim has just explained it, and the budget increase is clear at the very bottom of the resolution, the proposed budget increase. Are there questions for Kim? Oh, I should Paul just. Oh, no, Paul's here. Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Sandra. Is there a second? Paul, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. None opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Kim.
Thank you. In terms of our year-end financial projection, Based on where we are at this point in the year, projecting the year-to-date results out for the balance of the year and excluding the accounting entry that we have to record associated with DASNY's liability for its post-retirement benefits other than pensions, our financial results at the end of the year would be approximately 1.5% of our expenditures.
Thank you.
Are there questions?
If there are any questions, please direct them to Kim. Hearing none, Kim, I believe that completes your report?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, we are going now to tab 11. Ms. Lee. Oh, I'm sorry. No.
My comments are in the report.
In the report, okay.
So,
Terrific.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Behind tab 11 are the standard public finance reports. I would just note regarding the market that the calendar continues to build and folks are looking to enter the market before the end of the year in advance of those tax law changes. Last year's calendar was $21 billion. This was calendar in excess of $23 billion. In addition to that, as folks know, that FOMC is meeting today. It's expected that the Fed will increase rates by 20 basis points. The 10 and 30-year MMD have increased 9 and 4 basis points respectively, while on the short end of the curve, the 1 year has increased 17 basis points from the last meeting in November. We're on track to price and close all the financings that have been brought to the board for adoption of documents over the last several special board meetings. I'd note we were in the market with MSK yesterday, and they received a very strong result. The bonds were significantly oversubscribed, and the underwriter was able to tighten spreads considerably. Just briefly, I'd like to echo Al and Gerard's comments and just thank the board for your extraordinary commitment over this past number of weeks for the special board meetings. And I'd also just like to really recognize and thank staff, public finance, portfolio monitoring, and also the work that finance staff and legal staff are doing, because they're doing extraordinary work to really complete the bond sales and review and finalize all of the documents in order to close these transactions before the end of the year. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for Portia? The last item of business then is behind tab 12. Steve. He's got a punt?
Yeah.
Wherever you are, Steve, you're not down there. So we're going to, I'm going to ask whether there's any other business to come before this board. Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to adjourn? Paul? Thank you, Charlie. So we've got Paul's motion. Yeah, we missed. We missed. It is what it is. And thank you very much, Charlie.
We'll pretend you
All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. There are none opposed. The motion carries unanimously. My personal apology to Larry. Well, I got caught up in the moment of. I just forgive me.
I won't take it personally.
Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
We meet again in January on the 10th.
In Albany.
In Albany, that's right. Thank you all for coming. It's been a very worthwhile meeting. We've covered a lot in the last month and a half. Thank you all for your efforts.
You'll find out in
between the two,
probably about an hour whether the